Now, for more reaction to the Paulson testimony from a Bank of America shareholder, Antoine Schutz. He's president and founder of Mendon Capital Advisors, joining us again. You were with us earlier talking about the hearing. And Anton's Burnham Financial Industries Fund, by the way, is outperforming 98% of its peers' 5-year return performance. So you've done pretty well thus far, Anton, and great to see you again.
Pleasure.
Okay, so you've been monitoring this hearing, as have we here. What is your view so far on what you've seen?
Well, my view is the congressmen are all running for election constantly.
That never ends, though, Anton, right?
No. I'm actually quite surprised how polite Mr. Paulson is, and it's amazing he's able to restrain himself, given the beating he's taking. But at the end of the day, he did what he thought was right at the time and used everything within his power to try to help the U.S. financial system. And certainly a lot of the questions they're asking are subject to privilege, so he really can't answer the question. So I think we're wasting a lot of people's time here today.
Well, but as a Bank of America shareholder, though, are you at the least bit outraged at all from what you've heard from Paulson, Bernanke, Lewis as to how this deal was put together?
Yeah, I'm outraged at many things that we've heard. I really wish I had a full picture of all the facts. There's no doubt that Paulson and Bernanke acted in the best interests of the U.S. financial system. And the question is, really, could Ken Lewis have done anything differently? Perhaps have the government seize Merrill, perhaps pay nothing for it, and it would have still accomplished some of the same things. And, there's many legal aspects here, but I think at the end of the day, they probably could have pulled that off, and it would have been better for Bank of America shareholders at the end. However, you look at tomorrow's earnings, and I think Bank of America is going to be a huge contribution from Merrill Lynch. So, on one hand, you get upset about it, and the other hand, you go, okay, well, they own it, and it's printing money for them, and even countrywide, that franchise should have a blowout quarter for Bank of America.
Well, that sounds as if, Anton, that in the end, you do feel like that it was a smart deal for Bank of America.
Well, strategically, certainly, and financially, I guess we'll have to, count all the chips, all the losses they've taken. And a lot of those losses were mark to market as well on Merrill Lynch, and those markets may very well come back someday to some extent. So again, hard to tell. Certainly at the time, it was a short-term, very painful for Bank of America. Their capital ratios weren't strong enough to take another sick company, and that's why the government really came in to support Bank of America from a financial stability perspective, from a confidence perspective, and it was necessary at the time to support the entire system.
But Anton, as a shareholder, though, are there any lingering questions for you from Lewis or for the board or anything like that?
Well, certainly, and I think those questions are never going to get answered, unfortunately. I think the real question is, at which point do they really know that Merrill Lynch, had the issues it had? Certainly the due diligence they did the weekend they did the deal couldn't have been extensive because, Merrill Lynch is a vast company with tremendous financials, so there's no way they could have done enough due diligence. So, when did they know? And quite frankly, I think what disturbs a lot of people is, why didn't we know as shareholders that something material was going on? And I do know the answer. I mean, the answer is they're negotiating with, with the Fed and with Treasury for more TARP. They couldn't release one side of the story without the other side. And so it puts them in a very difficult position. So, horrible times. I mean, I'm certainly glad Bank of America is here today as a surviving entity. Yeah. But it's been a rough ride for shareholders and employees as well.
Well, surviving and still with Ken Lewis, though, at the helm, you're okay with that?
Indeed. Well, I am, and I think certainly one of the things Paulson talked about during testimony when he was asked why he didn't remove Lewis is there's a void out there of strong management in this industry. And, when I speak in public many times, I'll ask the audience, I'll say, hey, who's the best bank CEO out there? And I bet you know the answer too, Betty, right?
Well, I mean, I don't profess to know. I don't think I'm smart enough to know that, Anton.
Oh, I know. Well, all right, Jamie Dimon.
I can fathom a guess. Yes, of course.
Everybody says Jamie Dimon. And then I ask, okay, who's number 2? And the room becomes silent. And that's certainly one of the issues here is, you can shoot all these bank CEOs if you want to, but who steps in? And, if Ken Lewis is doing an adequate job in the minds of the regulators, and obviously he must be, or they would have removed him. Right. Who steps in to fill the void? It's easy to say fire them, but again, you have to have the talent there to be able to replace a leader, and I think this is an industry that could could use a lot more Jamie Dimons.
Well, you know, Anton, though, I mean, hearing you say all this, though, I mean, after all that has happened with this Bank of America Merrill Lynch deal, and as an investor in the financial sector, does it give you any pause? Does this malign your view of the Treasury, of the Fed, of bank management?
Well, you know, bank managements certainly are a large part of people I talk to all the time, and you know, it's always taken with a grain of salt. I've got to read through what they say, and you know, there's some great ones and there's some poor ones out there. It doesn't malign my view of the Treasury and the Fed because, you know, I quite frankly, they did everything within their power to, you know, avoid a financial meltdown, and there's no doubt that there are things they'd like to have back. For instance, I think you'll ask any regulator, and they'll say letting Lehman Brothers fail was a colossal mistake. In retrospect, that was a big mistake that they made. But I think that on the whole, I think they've done a very, very good job in creating a stable system. And I think we're far better off for, you know, a lot of their actions. Yeah,
and we tend to forget how critical those few weekends were last fall. Anton, thank you so much for joining us. Always great to talk with you. Anton Schutz of Mendon Capital Advisors.